Hello, I'm Achit Nair from Nair's Aviation Ground School. This is the 18th video in a new series of educational aviation videos for the aspiring pilot. We have covered a lot of detail regarding the theory of flight and the different aspects of flying an aircraft in our recent videos. Now, we are focusing on controlling and flying the aircraft. The cockpit contains all the controls needed for the student pilot to manipulate and maneuver the aircraft throughout all phases of flight. This video is about cockpit controls. The cockpit is the office of the pilot. All the business of flying the aircraft takes place in the cockpit. A cockpit or flight deck is the area, usually near the front of an aircraft, from which the pilot controls the aircraft. The cockpit of an aircraft contains flight instruments on an instrument panel and controls that enable the pilot to fly the aircraft. The cockpit or flight deck of an aircraft consists of many parts. It includes the instruments, which indicate the performance of the aircraft, as well as the physical controls of the airplane. To control an airplane, a pilot uses several instruments. The pilot controls the engine power of the aircraft using the throttle. Pushing the throttle increases power, while pulling it decreases power. On the smaller general aviation training aircraft, the mixture control is located right next to the throttle and is used to control the richness of the fuel-air mixture in the engine cylinders. The throttle and mixture are used together in training aircraft. The ailerons raise and lower the wings. The pilot controls the roll of the plane by raising one aileron or the other with a control wheel, also known as a yoke, or a control stick. Turning the control wheel clockwise raises the right aileron and lowers the left aileron, which rolls the aircraft to the right. Turning the control wheel counterclockwise raises the left aileron and lowers the right aileron, which rolls the aircraft to the left. On aircraft equipped with a control stick, pushing the stick left or right will roll the aircraft to the left or right direction. The rudder works to control the yaw of the airplane. The pilot moves the rudder left or right with the left and right pedals. Pressing the right rudder pedal moves the rudder to the right. Pressing the left rudder pedal moves the rudder to the left. This yaws the aircraft to the right or to the left. Used together, the rudder and the ailerons are used to turn the airplane. The rudder is operated by foot pedals in almost all the aircraft flying today, from the smallest training aircraft to the biggest long-range airliner. The elevators, which are on the tail section, are used to control the pitch of the aircraft. A pilot uses a control wheel to raise and lower the elevators by moving it forward and backward. Lowering the elevators makes the plane's nose go down and allows the plane to go down. By raising the elevators, the pilot can make the plane go up. On aircraft that use a control stick, pushing the stick fore and aft will either lower or raise the nose. The pilot of the airplane pushes the top of the rudder pedals to use the brakes. The brakes are used when the airplane is on the ground to slow down the airplane and to get ready to stop it. The top of the left rudder pedal controls the left brake, and the top of the right rudder pedal controls the right brake. When braking, it is important that the pilot applies equal pressure to both brakes, or the aircraft will turn left or right due to the unbalanced braking. Also, the application of the brakes need to be done smoothly to ensure the tires do not skid and that directional control of the aircraft is not lost on the ground. Obviously, the brakes are not used in the air. An aspect not often mentioned, but one that is very important to the student pilot, is the concept of trimming the aircraft. Trim tabs are small surfaces connected to the trailing edge of a larger control surface on an aircraft, used to control the trim to counteract the aerodynamic and stabilize the aircraft in a particular desired attitude without the need for the operator to constantly apply a control force. This is done by adjusting the angle of the tab relative to the larger surface. In most general aviation aircraft, the elevator is the only control surface that can be trimmed. Elevator trim frees the pilot from exerting constant pressure on the pitch controls. Instead, the pilot adjusts a longitudinal trim control, often in the form of a wheel, to cancel out control forces for a given airspeed or weight distribution. Typically, when this trim control, wheel, or lever is rotated or moved forward, the nose is held down. Conversely, if the trim control is moved back, the tail becomes heavy. Many newer aircraft, especially jet aircraft, have electric trim controls. The use of trim tabs significantly reduces the pilot's workload during continuous maneuvers, such as a sustained climb to altitude after takeoff, or a descent prior to landing, allowing them to focus their attention on other tasks such as traffic avoidance or communication with air traffic control. In addition to the previously mentioned controls, the cockpit also includes a control lever for the flaps, as well as various controls for the accessories on the aircraft. The flap lever allows the pilot to choose the degrees of flaps needed, and on training aircraft, 3 flap settings are usually available, being 10 degrees, 20 degrees, and 30 degrees of flaps. In addition to flaps, there is usually a parking brake to ensure the aircraft does not move when parked at the airport ramp. Another control usually found in aircraft is a landing gear lever. The landing gear lever allows the pilot to raise and lower the aircraft's tires. Generally, the initial aircraft flown by the student pilots have fixed landing gear, and so the tires cannot be raised or lowered. The other controls found on a specific aircraft can vary, depending on the complexity and capabilities of the aircraft. The cockpit is a very important place for the student pilot. It is important that the student pilot knows the different instruments and controls available in the cockpit. This will make flying a much easier and enjoyable task. For more information, please contact us at liftanddrag@gmail.com and visit our website at myersaviation.webnode.com. Thank you, safe flying.